Hi everyone, in this presentation, Team 15 will be describing their project for the spring 2018 semester. The team consists of Sean Clinton, Linton Cobb, Justin Lau, and myself, Anna Malhotra.
Our project will use 4 PIC microcontrollers to autonomously retrieve objects from an unsorted field and then sort them according to their color. There will be 3 rovers on the field and 1 PIC ensuring that the rovers remain within the playing field during the operation of the system.
The inspiration for this project actually comes from the autonomous robotic system used by Amazon warehouses. In the system, orders placed by customers are moved from one location to another by small robots that follow a very specific path based on their item location. The items are moved from one location to the other. In other words, the item is handed off from one robot to the other. In this project, we've tried to mimic this idea, but instead we distinguished objects by color rather than a barcode. Since Amazon is known to correctly deliver their items, we also tried to implement the idea of insurance by using a third rover that checks the work done by the previous rovers. In this manner, we not only move objects from one location to the other, but we ensure that we're moving them correctly. Now we'll move on to the specifics of this project. The field for this project consists of 3 distinct areas and a set of signposts on the outer boundary of the field. The first area is the unsorted area where red, green, or blue 10 centimeter cubes are scattered throughout. Specifically, there will be 2 of each color, making a total of 6 cubes in the area. The cubes will be taken from the unsorted area to the exchange area where they'll be picked up by the sorter and placed into the correct sorting area. The sorting area is 3 separate sub-areas of equal size, 1 for each colored cube. The sorting rover will make sure that the right color object is placed in the correct sorting area. Finally, 12 signposts will be strategically placed throughout the boundary of the field, acting as guides for the rovers. This will help them determine their orientation and location within the field.
The 3 rovers in our project specification, the retriever, sorter, and inspector, all have similar tasks operating in software. These PICs must meet our project requirements for communication, navigation, and object sensing. There are several threads which individually manage a different aspect of the project requirements. We will be more specific about the operations within each block later in this presentation. The block diagram gives us an overview of the flow of data in and out of the threads, sensors, motors, and communication devices. While each rover has different requirements to meet, this block diagram covers all 3 of the rover's operations. The internal decision-making in each rover is different, but the data flow is generally the same. Communication to the server is handled in the UART blocks via the UART interrupt. Sensor data is received from the timer interrupt and placed into message queues. And motor encoder data is managed by the PID algorithm with instructions received from the pathfinding thread. The 4th PIC is the boundary control PIC. This is the block diagram for the processes happening in software. The PIC determines the locations and status of the rovers based off the information it receives from the PIXICAM and communicates its results to the server. It communicates in the same fashion as the 3 other rovers, which is through UART, the UART interrupt, and the Wi-Fi.
For the network and communication aspect of this project, it first starts at the PIC level. We use UART-TX to send ASCII characters byte by byte to the Wi-Fi RN171. The Wi-Fi is then connected to our access point, which is served by the Raspberry Pi, which also doubles as a server. When requests are made to the server, they first pass through an Nginx reverse proxy and are finally sent to the Flash server. The Nginx reverse proxy helps filter out some bad requests from even reaching the Flash server, which has helped immensely with debugging. When validated by the Flash server, the important information is logged and able to be checked on the server side of the communication. When important information is sent to the server, we also use MongoDB to help store that information securely. When information is requested from the server, it is fetched from the database and returned to the PIC over UART in the form of a JSON payload. Mostly everything in our implementation uses JSON formatting, and we have various ways to check whether the messages are formatted correctly and that we receive them correctly. Our current message rate is 5 messages per second, and we think that is sufficient enough to have stable communication. On the server side, the main server is built using Flask and written in Python 3. Like I said before, we use an Nginx reverse proxy, which helps us enable keep alive connection to keep the connection open so we can have our message rate so high, and also helps filter bad requests from even reaching the server.
So for our microcontroller rows, one of the PIC is going to be on the rover that has a role of a retriever, which navigate the unsorted area of the field, recover any objects in that area, and return them to the exchange zone. One of the other PICs will be acting as a sorter, which collect objects from the exchange area and place them in the correct sorted area based on their color. One of the other PIC will be the inspector, which roams around the field and checks if the task is completed. That means any cubes has been removed from the unsorted area and the exchange area, and all the objects are placed correctly in the sorted area. The last PIC will be the border control, as well as having a PixieCam to give the whole project a vision of the whole field. The PixieCam will be constantly checking which objects are still in the field or have been moved out of the field, and the border control will utilize lasers to alert if any rovers has crossed the boundary.
For sensing on our rovers, we're using 3 different types of rangefinders. An infrared distance finder has a range from 4 to 30 centimeters, has a wide field of view, but a very limited range that it can sense in. The second is an ultrasonic rangefinder. Its range is from 30 to approximately 120 centimeters. The field of view is narrower than that of the infrared sensor, and it is from medium to long range. The last sensor we're using is a laser rangefinder. It has a range from 5 to 120 centimeters. It has a very narrow field of view and is from short to long range. The reason for using 3 different sensors is so that we can have redundancy in our readings, so that we can have confidence in the values that we determine when sensing objects' distances.
We decided to use the PixieCam as part of our hardware design because it has many abilities. For example, it has fast vision, which means that the PixieCam is able to track objects even if they're moving quickly. Furthermore, objects can be identified by their type and their color. The PixieCam can also track multiple objects at a time and will only track data that is wanted by the user. In this project, the PixieCam will be used by the rovers to identify object type and color. For example, the rover needs to be able to identify between a cube placed on the field and a rover placed on the field. If the object is a cube, it needs to be able to tell what color it is. We will also be using the PixieCam as part of our boundary control to ensure that objects are within the field. The PixieCam should be able to identify whether or not a rover or somehow an object leaves the field. A major limitation of the PixieCam is that it cannot be used in low light situations. Because the PixieCam is a camera, light is necessary for image processing.
For our rover movement, we have 2 motors on each side of the rover. There's 1 Hall sensor encoder on each one of the motors. The Hall sensor measures precisely the rotation of the motor. Each 900 ticks of the measurement would mean 1 full rotation of the motor. Since the PWM input does not guarantee the same rotation speed on different motors, the encoder measurement is fairly important for the PID control implementation. So for our PID, we use the feedback from the encoders to control the motors to reach our desired speed. If the measurement speed is lower than the measured speed, the algorithm will increase the speed and vice versa. And the speed bounces back and forth until it reaches our desired speed. In addition to the speed controls PID control loop, it is also possible to implement a position control loop so that the rover moves precisely to the position that we want it to be.
On the algorithm side of this project, there were 3 different algorithms that were mainly used. The pathfinding algorithm might be the most important, and for this we chose to use A*. A-star is widely used across gaming platforms and robot hardware, and implements a process of plotting an efficient path between points called nodes. The reason we chose A-star was because it was so widely used, and takes a heuristic approach, planning ahead with each move to ensure optimal pathfinding. The second algorithm we use is the state machine algorithm. This is basically to determine the different states of the rover for debugging purposes. Some examples of the different states include searching, located object, grabbing object, and dropping object. Since our project has 3 different rovers, the states may change, but similar structure will be used and implemented throughout the project. This algorithm is mainly for letting the server know what the rover is doing and how to proceed with operations in the future. The final algorithms that will be used are the grabbing and dropping algorithms. These have to do with physically picking up and putting down objects. Picking up objects especially, so we can make sure they are not lost in transport, and also ensuring the rovers drop the objects efficiently.